Hi, I made 52 songs in a year. That's one song for every week of the year. And that was a fun, wacky, cool, interesting, exhausting experience. And I just wanted to walk you through what that was like. Because most of these songs have lyrics, most of these songs have like some kind of arrangement and development to them, even though they're very, very simple and elementary. But I just wanted to talk to you about like what this was like. So, one of the key things I picked up was that I am capable of making stuff I like without having to prove to myself and to others that something I make is worthy of existence because of the effort I put into it. It's like when you're at a party and you have like something to say, but you're like, oh, it's not funny enough. Oh, it needs to be funny. Then I can make a contribution. But like artistically. And I think there's something really interesting about approaching music in a way where I don't feel as much of a need to prove to myself and to others that I'm worthy of taking up the time and space that their attention occupies with me. And instead just making just to have fun and stop like kind of worrying about making something great and instead of just meeting a deadline. I'm literally just meeting a deadline. I know that sounds a little weird because it's like, oh, that's kind of like work now. You're treating your passion like it's it's something to do that you have to do instead of something that you want to do. It's like, no, I want to do all these things. But it's more like the pressure is off. I can do whatever I want, and I've always been able to do whatever I want with my music. But now doing this weekly thing helped me realize like, whoa, I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I can make what I want. Like, that's so cool. Another thing I picked up was that the value is in the idea and absolutely nothing else. At least this is my kind of opinion and approach to how I look at art and music, is that I don't really care that much about how things are mixed and mastered. What I found really valuable every time I listen to like a new piece of music is the ideas that are implemented into that body of work that I really love. And even if a song is poorly mixed or just like horribly like distorted, if I can pick out the ideas that the artist implemented into it, that's all I want. That's great art to me. That I can see the ideas that you're translating into real temporal space. Like, that's so cool. The idea of the song is so much more important than how it's executed. Look at the sunrise, look at the sunshine, rays sleeping on your bed. You are in a sandbox. Play in the sandbox. I want you to imagine like GarageBand or Ableton or Reason, whatever DAW you use. I mean, who the hell uses Reason? I want you to think of your DAW as a physical space. Each plugin, each synthesizer is its own instrument. Are you telling me you're not going to be walking into that room and just playing everything because it's just there? You're just gonna leave it there? Like, are you just that uncurious and disappointed and cynical about life that you're just not gonna explore this unlimited library of sounds that are sitting on your laptop? I think making these songs, I was able to kind of recognize that a little more, where I was like, oh, because I made a song last week, let's do something different, let's do something different, let's do something different. And every time I did that, I kept opening this sandbox and was like, wow, there's so much random stuff that I haven't tried or I haven't messed around with much, or a certain style that I haven't messed with that much, or a genre. It's like, there's no need to stick to a genre, obviously, we all know this. But there's also no reason to stick to your instincts. You can walk out of your instincts and be like, let's just see. Community will enhance your art, not hinder it. You know, there's a lot of singer-songwriters out there that are like, where I was kind of in that headspace of like, oh, I need to work alone. I'm like Batman, bro. Anyone else that enters my creative space is just getting in the way of it. That's not productive. And I want you to think of the number of times where you've been alone and you've made something and it was garbage. That's a lot of times, isn't it? The key variable here is not whether you work alone or together with someone. Those are just separate things, and they each have their own successes and failures. And I think collaboration, especially when it works well, is so much better than just working alone. There are so many things that you are just not specialized in or capable of making just purely because you haven't spent as much time working on it as another person. And so if you have someone that can do a thing for you, like a guitar solo like Darius did and Parallel did, those are my dudes. Like they can do that. Like, let them shine. And I think it fosters a community in collaborating with others. I think that's super important as an artist, because it can feel a little lonely, especially if you don't have friends that are as annoyingly, obnoxiously artistic as you. And I'm not saying artistic as like, I'm better than you. It's more like, I mean, who the hell dresses like this? Come on, let's be so for real. Out of your friend group, like, who is gonna do this? So like, I'm just talking like that. Like, you have a community that is just as silly, goofy, goober, and quirky like you. And I think that's great. That's healthy for your artistic development, I think.
Hollow inside like a tin can, barely hear you through those lies.
And I think when we're on the topic of making stuff, whether it's alone or with others, when you're making music or making art, I think it's so easy, at least for me, to get lost in the philosophy of it and the scale of it and be like, oh my gosh, there's so much amazing art, and what is art if not the realist form of expression? You synthesize and concentrate an emotive experience that is universal but at the same time deeply personal. You get into this whole wrap up about it and you get so scared and stuck when you try to make something, because you're like, it's not meeting my standard of art. It needs to be this. It needs to be this grand thing that I've understood it as. I think making these weekly songs, where it's more about meeting a deadline and just playing, rather than making something great with such grandeur, I think that's super helpful. I want to say to my past self and to my current self, just every now and then, that it's not that deep. Like, music is whatever you make it out to be, and if you want to have fun that day, have fun that day. Now I just have And last but not least, specifically talking about the lyrical material, a lot of this is very spontaneous, and I'm just writing very quickly, or I freestyle it during these weekly songs. I think there's something really freeing about that. And I think a lot of people, myself included, hide behind lyrics a lot of times, even though that's supposed to be kind of the most poignant and vulnerable part of the music, if you are including lyrics in it. People like to hide in the vagaries of a metaphor. I like to hide in the vagaries of a metaphor and hide in the syntax of the words and the semantics of what each word means. It's so ambiguous. And artists love ambiguity. And I think there's a beauty to ambiguity that I love working with and is a healthy way of working with. But I think at the same time, ambiguity can be very unhealthy when you're writing things that you want to express personally, and these words are just not communicative of what you're trying to express. And you're just being like, that's good enough, you know? Saying, like, I'm sad like the rainfall is like, what does that mean? And why are you gonna be using that? And does it resonate with your specific experience? And I think a lot of artists will be like, good enough. I think that works. It's vague, it's artistic. I can use this because it vaguely expresses how I feel. But I think there's something really beautiful that comes to fruition with honesty. And I know it's not easy being vulnerable sometimes, but honesty is just better and easier. And I say easier because it comes more naturally than fabrication. Honesty is just so like, wow, I can just be myself in the music I make. And when I express lyrics about how I'm feeling at the time, it comes easier to write it. Maybe not to release it, but it comes way easier. It's so much easier if you just let yourself be vulnerable in your art. It makes the whole thing way easier. It makes writing easier when you're honest with yourself and the meaning you inject into your art. And I think that's a huge thing I picked up through this process of making these silly little songs.
Be other.
A lot of this music is truly reflective of me, and it's reflective of how I'm feeling at the time, or that very instance, or how the music is making me feel, and what it's inspiring me to conjure up. And I think I've made the best music I've made ever this year, because of just the sheer flow and consistency of this project, but also just the level of honesty and vulnerability that I can play with and toy with as I've developed my kind of sort of ability to maybe write some lyrics. There's still so much work ahead of me, but I think I just want to take some pride in myself for being able to make a song, let alone 51 other songs in the span of this year. So pat myself on the back, you know, pat yourself on the back. Do it right now. Do it right now. You should be proud of yourself, whether you made art or not this year. And I think there's a value in knowing that your honesty is beautiful. And man, this is so cheesy.
Ain't it funny how the world turns, making sunny of mundanity?
I wanted to say thank you for listening, but also listening to my music if you ever have listened to it, and collaborating with me if you've ever collaborated with me, whether you got helped out on a song or you listened to a demo I sent. I am deeply thankful to my audience, even if it is not as sizable as, you know, anyone would think. But thank you. And if you liked any of the snippets of my songs, just like, you can give it a listen. It's all there. It's all on my account. But yeah, I'll see you around. And thank you for being here. What the hell is happening behind? Okay, anyways, bye-bye. Thank you. Take care of yourself. More music coming soon.
It's way too cold to feel anything, but you make the world a better thing. The ice in my heart is melting.